What's happening right now is the entire crypto world is going to go through this evolution to become more compliant and more institutionalized. And it either will make it through that and grow by a factor of 10, or it will not make it through that gate and it will have its growth impaired. More than 21 million Bitcoin, so it's a very fixed supply. It's the only scarcity that anybody can invest in the world. Every other asset that you can buy as an inflation hedge, like real estate or stocks or gold or commodities, all of those things have a supply that's going to increase as the price goes up. But you can't increase the supply of Bitcoin. So if you look at the world currencies, they're inflating at 10% or more a year for the past 30 years, maybe as much as 14% a year. You can expect they'll keep inflating for the next 30 years. And so Bitcoin measured in currencies of the world and in currency derivatives is just going to keep going up with volatility, albeit. Right? Gold is increasing in supply at 2% a year in the physical regime, and bankers can rehypothecate gold and they can print 100 ounces of paper gold for every real ounce of gold. And so Bitcoin is the dominant digital monetary network. And because it's dominant and because it's fixed, it means that it's the most reliable, highest integrity, scarcest thing in the financial universe. The dollar is going up forever against the peso. The dollar's gone up forever against the Venezuelan bolivar. So a strong asset is going to go up against a weak asset forever. And since we know that nobody in the universe can create any more Bitcoin, and since we know that every political nation state is going to create more currency, it isn't really that much of a stretch to say that measured in the currencies of nation states, Bitcoin is just going to continue to appreciate, right? If I double the amount of currency, then you've got a natural boost against a scarce asset. It's also a function of technology, right? We're building Bitcoin into every iPhone and Android phone on the planet. Like in El Salvador, they delivered it to 3 million people in 3 weeks. So as the utility of the asset increases, that drives adoption. And so if you increase the number of users by a factor of 10, if you bring 10 billionaires with $1 billion of capital each on the network, right? As you bring corporations on the network and as you improve the utility, the price just keeps appreciating for all those reasons. Even if we stopped printing any money and we had zero inflation rate, the utility of digital property that moves at the speed of light that can be programmed 1 million times a second is clearly higher than gold or higher than any other monetary asset you can hold. I think the most interesting thing in this year is that every public figure, every public CEO, every politician is being forced whether they're going to integrate Bitcoin into their nation state, into their currency, into their company, into their technology. That's the story. No one's asking whether they're going to integrate gold or integrate silver or integrate silicon chips, right? Bitcoin is the story. I think that over time, more and more companies are going to integrate Bitcoin into their balance sheet, and more and more companies are going to integrate Bitcoin into their products and their services and their technology. The second inflection point is the past month, where it's very clear to every institutional investor and every mainstream company that the administration supports Bitcoin, the Senate supports Bitcoin, Congress supports Bitcoin, the Treasury Department supports Bitcoin. It's digital property. You can hold it. It's going to come into the normal regulatory regimes. And so I think a lot of people were waiting for that signal. I think that there's two ways to see the world. There's the crypto world. The crypto world would like to issue their own securities and create their own banks and create their own stock exchanges and not be subject to the CFTC, the SEC, or the Treasury Department. And they would just like to recreate the world anew. There's the Bitcoin view of the world, which is we've got digital property. All we need to do is plug it into every existing insurance company, existing finance company, existing bank, existing country, existing technology. So Bitcoin is a solution for Apple to make $1 trillion. Whereas in the crypto world, they want to rip Apple to zero and reinvent everything. And so I think that the bill is actually going to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin. Look, my view is that Bitcoin can be paired with JP Morgan and make JP Morgan a better bank. It can be paired with the US dollar and make the US dollar a better currency. Bitcoin can be paired with the existing power structure and the existing world as we know it today and make everything better, you don't need to rip everything down and rebuild it. So I think that there's a schism here. The crypto world is about rebuilding everything. We don't want regulation, we don't want taxation, we don't want government. And there's another way to see the world, which is let's just fix the capital structure or fix the underlying foundation of the world economy with a digital asset, which is Bitcoin, and then let the world evolve to something better. I think the administration is quite qualified. And I think when they look at the world, what they see is Bitcoin is property and it should be treated as property. I think they look at stable coins and they think that stable coins should be issued by banks and be treated as money markets in cyberspace. And it should be subject to banking rules. I think they look at security tokens and they think they should be treated as securities. And I think they look at the trading and they think if you're going to trade derivatives or securities, they should come under existing commodities and securities laws. And if they do all those things, if that's the way the world looks at this, then the entire ecosystem is going to grow. Stable coins are $130 billion right now. And if JP Morgan and Citigroup start issuing stable coins, we're going to go to $1 trillion and then $10 trillion and then $100 trillion. So I'm not at all concerned about what's going on. I actually think it's going to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin as the world's reserve asset. I think it's also going to provide a foundation for the 21st century economy that's for the good of everybody. I'm not troubled by what's happening. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to be a bank and you don't want to get a banking license and you don't want to comply with existing Treasury, CFTC, and SEC rules, then you might be concerned about them having an interest in you. But on the other hand, we have $500 trillion of stuff in the existing system, and I think it's more important that the existing banks, the existing companies, the existing countries adopt the digital asset economy than it is that they stay out of that system. The point here is that no one's questioning the creditworthiness of JP Morgan and Bank of America and Citigroup. So at the point that the regulators give a green light to major banks in the world to issue hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of digital assets, which happened last week. At that point, you're beckoning the entire world financial system to embrace digital technology. And you'll know that we got there when Amazon moves $100 billion back and forth on digital rails. We've been locked in this nonstop debate over whether Tether is reliable for 4 years, endless debate. It's holding the industry back. And we need to get to the point where people have tens of trillions of dollars of money moving around without the debate about whether or not it's creditworthy or not. You have the crypto economy, which has been entrepreneurial and has been a bit opaque and under-regulated or unregulated for a decade, and it got to a few $1 trillion. And now you have a struggle between the past and the future, and you've got a set of institutional investors that have hundreds of trillions of dollars, and will they come into the space? You have a set of institutional companies like Square and Apple and Google and PayPal and MicroStrategy that have huge amounts of capital and technology and brand, and will they come into the space? And you have countries like the United States, right? Like El Salvador. Will they come into the space? And I think that we're going to move from the first decade, which got us to about 2 to 3 trillion. If you want to get to 30 trillion, you need to get to the point where, like, MicroStrategy buys $1 billion. We bought $3.1 billion worth of Bitcoin, okay? You can't find any entrepreneur that ever put $3.1 billion of capital into anything in the entire crypto system, and yet we're a small company. So I think the next stage is about laying the framework such that the Ray Dalios of the world will buy 5 billion of Bitcoin or 10 billion of Bitcoin. Or when Fidelity actually shifts $500 billion, right? They got 11 trillion. When they shift, they have $2 trillion worth of fixed income funds. When 25% of that flows into Bitcoin, you're going to see a different world. And you're not going to get there if you have a never-ending debate about, is that a security? Is that backed by real money? And is it regulated? And I think Gensler's point is we need transparency with regard to banks that issue digital money. We need transparency with regard to exchanges that trade securities for the public. We need transparency with regard to organizations that would issue their own securities in the crypto economy. And this stuff it's well understood in the mainstream community. Like if you're going to sell stock to the public or debt to the public, you have to file your statements and you have to go through regulatory compliance.